name is Ann. My name is Ann Matek. I'm with the Greater Flagstaff Forest Partnership here in Flagstaff, Arizona, and I am co-chair of this wood utilization community of practice. And Becca, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good morning or afternoon if you're up in Minnesota, somewhere further east. I'm Becca Samolsky. I'm the director of Fire Adapted Colorado, which is a statewide network for wildfire resilience in Colorado. And I know many of you new faces, so good to see you all today. Try to help with this conversation that's really around trying to help people who are working on wildfire resilience issues figure out what to do with all that wood. And so that's why we've been running this group for the last 7 or so years. So glad to have Paul here today, and
Okay, thanks, Becca. And Dipita.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dipita Ghosh. I'm a postdoc with ERI. I actually work with Paul in the biomass utilization team. Currently, I'm looking into options like how to use the biochar that we produced during the demo. And I'm looking forward to the presentation too.
Great. Well, hopefully we can get you to present on biochar because a lot of people are interested in that. It would be wonderful.
Okay, sure.
Thank you so much for being here. And Burke, you looks like you've got quite a few folks in that room.
Yeah, hi, I'm Burke Powers, engineer here with Air Burners.
Great, thank you. And Jaden.
Hello, everyone. Jaden Peterson. I'm a forest ecologist with SWCA Consultants based in Nevada.
Awesome, thank you. And Henry.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm dealing with some computer and audio issues. My name is Henry DeLuca. I'm the coordinator of the Fire Adapted Montana Learning Network, similar to Becca Samolsky, and I'm really happy to be here today to see everyone's faces and hear more about the subject.
Great, thanks, Henry. And Jay.
Good morning, afternoon. Jay Smith. I'm the Forest Restoration Director for the Coconino County Flood Control District in Northern Arizona.
Thanks, Jay. And Chris.
Hey, it's great to be here with everybody. Chris Jones, University of Arizona Cooperative Extension, do programming in forest health, and was out there when we were doing that research or the trials. So really good to be here with Paul and Dipita. And I've got to leave a little early, but I'm going to stick around as long as I can. Good to see you, Ann.
You too, Chris. Good to see you. And Bergen.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Bergen Eskildsen. I'm the Forest Products and Businesses Program Coordinator for the Utah Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands, and glad to be here as well.
And David.
I'm Dave Bruton. I work for the Kansas Forest Service as a utilization and marketing forester, so very interested in the biochar side of things.
Great, thank you. And Brian.
Yes, Brian Garbish. I'm the Forestry Programs Administrator for South Dakota.
Thank you. And Martin?
Good morning, Martin Tveer, Biomass Program Director for the Watershed Center in California.
Nice to see you, Martin. And Nate.
Likewise.
Hi, everybody. Nate Anderson, Rocky Mountain Research Station. I'm based in Missoula, Montana, and I'm in the Research and Development branch of the U.S. Forest Service. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces on this call.
Yes, indeed. And Paul.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and afternoon to the folks who are on the other side of the country. I am Paul Oyier. I work with the Ecological Restoration Institute here as a research associate with Han, and I think I'm the man of the moment today.
You are, certainly are. And Han, please.
Hello, my name is Hanzop Han. I'm a faculty member at School of Forestry at NAU. Thank you.
Nice to see you, Han. And Paul Tedderton.
Hey, folks. I'm Paul Tedderton with the Nature Conservancy on our forest team here in Flagstaff, Arizona. Looking forward to the presentation, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
And Gloria.
Hey everyone, I live in Ely, Minnesota, and I work for Dovetail Partners, and I am very interested in the presentation because all of a sudden my county is like, what do we do with all this stuff now that our chipper guy just quit? So Dovetail, one of our associates is really involved in biochar. And so we have been really trying to present that idea in Minnesota, and we might have an opportunity here. And they certainly want to hear about curtain burners as well. So I'm here to learn as much as I can. Thanks for the invite.
Nice to see you, Gloria. And Steve Orr.
Hi, Steve Orr with Boulder Fire Rescue. I just hopped on. Would you like me to say more about anything or just introduce myself?
Just introduction, Steve.
All right, excellent.
Nice to see you. Really nice to see you, Steve.
You too.
And Lisa.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lisa Bolton, Forest Health Project Coordinator at Salt River Project, and I'm based in Flagstaff, Arizona.
And Karina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karina Marshall. I coordinate the Northern Colorado Fireshed Collaborative, and just hoping to learn from you all today and take things back to our collaborative members who work across Colorado's Front Range, and we're trying to deal with our woody biomass problem. Thanks.
Nice to have you. Thanks, Karina. Okay, Dr. Paul, I'm gonna hand it over to you. We're really looking forward to this.
While he's pulling that up, can I get the full round robin too from Burke's group of who's there with the air burners?
Sure. It's a secret. You can.
I'm Brian O'Connor. I'm the president. Hello, my name is Mike Schmidt. I'm the director of sales here at Air Burners.
And I'm Matthew Dennis, customer service manager.
Thank you, guys. Glad to have you here.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We're in Florida.
I don't know if we missed anybody else. I saw Mariello, maybe, just to make sure I got everybody.
Hello.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
So do I have the opportunity to start?
You bet. And it looks good. You can see your screen.
Okay. Well, I'll try as much as possible to go through it quickly because I have a class to teach at exactly 10 minutes past 11. So maybe if there would be more questions for discussions beyond the hour, then I would request that maybe we meet at a later date. Otherwise, welcome everybody, and I'm happy to see your faces to join me in this. So we are here today to actually learn what happened when we were doing this experiment on evaluating the performance of biomass disposal machines. And in this particular research, we were focusing on air curtain burners and the charbos. So quite a number of folks participated in this study, as you can see, and I appreciate their input on this one. So first and foremost, I would want to bring to your attention the concept of open pile burning as a very common method for managing biomass on sites. A lot of folks around the Southwest region and across the US actually adopt this method to manage biomass on site. And one of the issues that some of the issues that are actually associated with this kind of method is that you tend to look at the scale of burning. How much can you burn? What amount of smoke do you release into the environment? Do you really consider the damage to the soil properties and the soil microbial activity? And then what about the danger of uncontrolled fires? Because if you are a manager and you are doing an open pile burning on a site, if the wind blows beyond the expected speeds, then you risk the danger of starting fires that you might not be able to control. And then sometimes, what do we really think of when we talk of open pile burning and the cost of uncontrolled wildfires when they spread beyond our control? So what basically are the available alternatives to that method? This is where we now come in to talk about the air curtain burners and the charbos machines manufactured by the Air Burners Company. These two machines, actually, I'll show you pics of them later, but they work based on the air curtain principle. What happens is that we have a large firebox, and then on top of the large firebox, we have a pipe with the air that is blowing from a motor generator that creates a curtain above that firebox. So any emission that comes from the burning biomass is retained within it and burns completely. So that way we actually reduce the amount of particulate parts per million, the particulate matter that is emitted into the environment. And what you see actually during that burning is basically just a form of heat waves coming above it and not smoke. So some of the perceived benefits, and some of them are proven, is that we can dispose biomass actually by burning it into ash. We can as well have a Charbo's machine disposing by burning into ash, and at the same time, you have the opportunity to produce a biochar. And then a Charbo's machine actually is easy to mobilize and move around because you can tag it along your pickup truck and drive it around within the unit where you want to manage your biomass. And then we think of waste management efficiency. We talk of faster burning because these machines are actually designed to burn specific amount of biomass per hour. And then you can easily control the fires. You know, when the wind speeds go beyond certain limits, you can easily shut down the system by just stopping feeding the biomass into the firebox. So biochar that is actually produced through this process actually has got a lot of applications. One of them is soil carbon sequestration and storage, and then improvement of degraded soils. I think this one is what my colleague Debita is currently working on, and we will be able to explore that at a later date. And one of the huge benefits, again, are the environmental. Clean burning and reduced emissions into the environment is one of the key features of these two machines. So in this context, the study goal here was actually to evaluate the performance of these two machines and specifically to determine the rate of biomass burning for each of the machines, the quantity of biochar that is produced by the Charbo's machine, and then think about the economics of operating the two machines. So the operational cost for disposal using both the machines and biochar production, and then do some little bit of cost benefit analysis of these two machines and know if I am burning this much and at this amount of time per year, at what cost am I able to operate at? So these are basically the objectives, and this experiment was designed basically to seek to answer to some of these specific objectives. So the materials that we used in this study, the study area was actually the Coconino County Public Works Facility, which is within Flagstaff here in East Copeland Lane. And the area is an open area, which actually was very good for the study because it is open and you can easily predict the direction of the wind without relying on man-made machines and equipment. And then it is also spacious in a way that we could be able to find space to arrange our biomass piles and put machines arrange machines spaciously according to the recommended requirements by the company. The materials that we used for this study were actually of two types. One of them was post-fire dry biomass, which was actually obtained from a previous fire event. And these materials actually are 100% ponderosa pine, and the dry ones had no needle because something coming from the fire, you do not expect to get the needles. And then, of course, we also had green biomass pruning waste coming from people who are actually working on their golf courses around Flagstaff. So the material, the burning machines that we had here, I've mentioned previously, is the air curtain burner. I hope those of you who have seen this is the large machine, the air curtain burner, and this is the Charbo's. Basically, you can burn biomass here into ashes in both of them, and you have the advantage of producing biochar from your Charbo's machine. Now, we had two loading machines on site, and don't forget that we also had hand loading for the Charbo's. So we had a Caterpillar 308 and the CAT 299, which is commonly referred to as the bobcat loader. And other equipment and tools, we had moisture meters, we had temperature scanners, we had portable weighing scale to determine the weight of biomass, we had a weather measuring equipment, chainsaws, dump truck, and fire trucks for safety purposes. So the study was designed in such a way that I had to start by actually considering the type of biomass that we had in place. We sorted this biomass into 5 diameter classes. Basically, the post-fire dry biomass was sorted into 4 diameter classes. We had small, medium, large, and mixed, and then the green biomass was that which came from the prunings. So we did moisture measurements, we did loading, burning, data collection, and analysis. So basically, this is what we organized and how the experiment was conducted. Now, in sorting, if you look at this pile of mixed biomass coming from post-fire event, so we had small, which were actually categorized as material whose diameter was less than 2 inches. We had medium that had a range of diameter between 2 to 4 inches. We had large that had a diameter which was greater than or equals to 4 inches. And then, of course, the mixed was that an aggregation of these 3 other diameter classes. The other type of material that we had here was just the green biomass, and we treated that as a single pile as it was coming from the areas where we sourced them, where we got them for free, actually. We did moisture measurements. So in the process of measuring the moisture, actually, the small diameter material, I was just propping up this moisture meter, which has got 1 inch in length of pins that you drive into the wood, then read off the moisture reading from the digital display. But for the large material, actually, we had to cut them into 2 and take 3 moisture measurements along a straight line across the pith, and then average them to get the average moisture content of that particular pile of biomass. So I did weight measurements. I used a portable scale, as you can see down here. What I did here was basically to get the weight of an empty truck. And the weight of an empty truck basically means you take all the axle loads of each and every individual axle, you add them up, and then you load the truck with biomass and take the axle loads for all the wheels, and then add them up, and of course, just get the difference to know the weight of the biomass that you're putting into pile. So in the end, I added all the weights for each and every measurement pile that I put on the truck to determine how much a given pile of biomass weighed. Now, on the study side, we did a layout, and the layout basically was dependent on where should the machines and the piles of biomass be placed, how far away are they supposed to be placed, and where are you supposed to place the biomass. So technically, from the air burners, they recommend that maybe for a storage pile, you put it at least 50 feet away from the machine. And we had to put both machines far away from each other just for loader maneuverability. And we had to make sure that the ground was level so that material doesn't drop as the loading machines move across. Of course, you can see we also had a fire truck just for safety purposes here, because when you're burning, you have embers coming off the firebox, and this can easily start up a fire. And at the same time, you have to monitor the wind speeds, because the wind speed here, when it is too high beyond 25 miles an hour, then it breaks the air curtain, the air manifold. And then you've got chances of embers coming off and starting fire on dry piles that are placed closer to the machine. So we did loading basically, and loading, we used these 2 machines, the CAT 308 and the Bobcat. And in loading, if we are doing a time study here, which of course we collected data for, we were interested in knowing these elements and what time is associated with them. When a loader drives empty to the pile of biomass that is 50 feet away, grabbing the biomass, driving back loaded to the machines, and then dropping it, and at the same time arranging material within the firebox. So each and every of these cycle time elements, we were timing to know what exactly a cycle time took for the purposes of time study. Now, during burning, we were monitoring the starting time after loading and the finishing time for both machines. And we were using excuse me, we were taking the firebox temperature, actually using the laser scanner to determine firebox temperature for the burning biomass. And then of course, we were really interested in the wind speed, and for that matter, the average wind speed, because that determined as to whether our operations would proceed during the rest of the day or we would stop because of the dangers that are associated with high wind speed, especially breaking the air curtain and chances of starting maybe fires around. So in the end, we produced biochar from the char balls, and the metrics that we determined from here were the weight, the moisture content, and the moisture content of the biochar that we produced, actually we determined on dry weight basis, meaning that we took samples and took them to the oven for 24 hours and then determined what the dry weight was. And then we also captured data on recovery of biochar by diameter class. So I have this small picture here that shows you actually the amount of ash that you can expect at the end of the day when you burn biomass consistently, assuming that you're using a small char balls that burns 1 green ton per hour. So if you work for 10 hours, then you can think of burning up to 10 tons and having an ash below the belt of that magnitude. Now, the experimental variables, of course, you know, sometimes we've got to go back to the academics because it is research. My variables basically here were the machines. I had 2 machines here, and I was looking at the diameter classes, determined the moisture content of each pile of biomass. I was interested in knowing the biochar. So biochar here is a variable that relates to the quantity that is produced, and then the rate here is the rate of quantity of green tons of biomass that is burned in an hour. And then, of course, the temperature is just the temperature of the firebox during the time when the biomass is being burned. We had to take into account the environmental variables like the wind speeds, as I've explained, the effects and potential dangers of wind speeds exceeding the 25 miles an hour, the atmospheric temperature, and relative humidity. The reason why we did that is a combination of these 3 variables can potentially influence the way in which you operate the machine, and sometimes they can demand that you shut down the operations. So in my results, when I looked at the time study, the average loading time, and considering each loading cycle element, these are the mean cycle times in minutes and their standard deviations. So one thing to note here is the average cycle time using a cat loader 308 was about 1.6 minutes, and that for using a bobcat was about 1.25 minutes. That means that these loading machines had to go through all these cycles, driving to empty, back loaded, dropping it in, and then arranging the material within the firebox. One important thing to note here that these are only cycle times that were complete. So a complete cycle time involved all these elements. So any cycle time that missed one of these elements was not included in the study. Now, our results for the burning for the air curtain burner, and I want you to note that the burning rate here was determined as green tons per hour. And you look at the moisture content and you can see the variability. We have small, diameter, medium, all the way to the green biomass. So in this case, the most important take-home message I want you to note is that most people normally manage mixed biomass on site. So that shows that we only got an average of 2.5 green tons an hour. I want you to note that this value is different from what the air curtain burner company determined previously by conducting their experiment, but it is based on the fact that we had one loader operator operating the two machines, loading the air curtain burner and at the same time taking materials to load the charbos. So potentially, this value is lower than a minimum of 4 green tons an hour that we would get under normal conditions, according to the air burners company. Now, coming to the charbos, again, in terms of diameter classes, the air burners company designed the machine to be burning at least 1 green ton an hour. And I think we did a pretty good job here to get values that are actually not far from what they would expect. And again, I'm stressing on the need of looking at the value for the mixed biomass because we are going to use it as a later study. So in terms of green biomass, you can see that the small diameter one actually burned faster, almost getting closer to the value of 1 ton an hour. And the mixed one was 0.8. So you look at the variability of those burning rates from this box plot, see that for the air curtain burner, we had a very wide range of variability, and that could be potentially affected by a range of factors like the moisture content, the firebox temperature when the material is fed in, at the same time, the size of the material. And you can see how small the range for the charbos machine is. I did split this up actually in terms of diameter classes, and you can potentially see that small diameter biomass burned at a faster rate in both machines compared to the large diameter class. Now, in terms of biochar productivity, again, you can see that the green biomass recorded the lowest productivity here. And one of the potential reasons why we had this low productivity is that you take a green biomass and you think of the emissions that are coming up during burning. So you have green leaves, you have small branches, and they burn, releasing a lot of emissions into the environment. And at the same time, they have a very high ash content in the end. The one for the large material, think in terms of heat transfer. How long does it take the heat to transfer across a given transverse section of wood before it can break down and fall off and get into the conveyor belt before it is cooled to get a biochar? Now, with all that information and with your hindsight remembrance that I was talking of the burning rates per hour, which I've used here, this was an operational cost analysis. And what you can see from this table is that I have cost factors and assumptions that were used to calculate the machine cost. The machine cost here was determined in dollar per scheduled machine hour. Scheduled machine hour simply means that, okay, you're going to conduct an operation and you're saying, I'm going to do this work in 10 hours. But then productive machine hours are the hours that the machine is actively burning the biomass. So you drop it in, it burns, and when you have maybe stoppages like wind speeds going beyond the recommended limits, or you've got some breakdowns happening, then you only consider that time minus delays and other issues that are coming in. So we did a base case scenario. If you take an air curtain burner and use a Cat 308 loader, what would be the hourly cost for that combination? We determined that to be about $32 an hour. And if you consider just the charbos machine with one loader, just one person loading the machine and getting the biochar out of the tray and managing everything, that cost came up at $80 an hour. And this is based on these values that are burned here. The rate of burning for the mixed diameter class biomass, not small, not large, just for the mixed. Now, I did a break-even analysis for the biomass disposal for the two machines And what I was interested in here is determining the point of indifference where you would use either of the machines. So that point was actually when you are burning up to 2.64 green tons an hour, then you would consider probably using a Char-Boss machine with hand loading as opposed to the air curtain burner because of the cost. But one thing that I want you to remember is the Char-Boss machine is primarily designed for producing biochar. So disposal is another advantage that it comes up with. Now, I did again a sensitivity analysis on hourly cost per green ton of biomass burned, considering the number of hours that you would operate this machine annually. One thing that I have to mention here, though, is that if you buy an equipment and you're in business, if the equipment remains idle, you're not making money. You are losing that fixed cost. You are probably repaying for loan, but not having the machine productively engaged to do the work that you want. So in this case here, we have a variability. You can run up to 1,800 hours in a year, but you can see the effect on cost per green ton of biomass burned. One thing to note here is that at some point, the cost becomes constant. And the explanation beyond that is that the machine is basically designed to burn up to a given maximum of biomass an hour. So even if you are running it at 900 hours a year, you can only burn effectively up to a maximum of the design burning rates, and you cannot go beyond that. Now, I also did some qualitative analysis of these two machines. If you look at the air curtain burner and the Char-Boss based on our experiment, what would you say is the advantage or the disadvantage or the limitation of each of the machines? So in this case, if you look at the operational costs, and in operational costs here, I want you to come to think of the upfront cost when you're buying a machine, a brand new machine, and you want to operate it. So naturally, given the design, the air curtain burner has got a higher capital expenditure, meaning that its fixed costs remain high, and therefore its operational costs technically will be higher compared to the Char-Boss machine, even though the variability from the range of the initial capital costs are not far wide. So in terms of functional design, I determined that the air curtain burner basically is meant for burning basically biomass into ash. You have an advantage of burning biomass into ash and at the same time producing biochar. That is the primary reason for which you have this Char-Boss machine. Productivity efficiency, if you are loading consistently and you have biomass put closer to the machine or a loading pile, then you would expect to get a higher rate of biomass disposal with air curtain burner, probably attaining the maximum design limits. With a Char-Boss, that rate is relatively lower, but it is also depending on a range of factors like feeding and effective arrangement of material within the firebox. The productivity of ash in terms of these two machines, definitely the air curtain burner produces more because of its surface area of the firebox or the volume of biomass that it handles. We have low ash quantity coming from the Char-Boss. But then the downside of the air curtain burner, the air curtain burner here is that you've got to shut the whole system for you to be able to remove the ash. While for the Char-Boss, you can easily just drive, you can connect the trailer containing the firebox and just drive it off the unit and remove the ash. Portability, well, the air curtain burner requires that when you are doing a mobilization, you want to move it from one unit to another, you need maybe a loading equipment, you need a lowboy to move it to a new site, you need technical manpower to be able to manage all that work that comes with it. And those additional machines that you use actually come with additional costs. So it would technically be more costly to mobilize an air curtain burner compared to a Char-Boss that actually just connect and drive that the trailer with a firebox. Operational safety, I would say that the air curtain burner, probably you need a larger area compared to a charbos. And of course, the environmental benefits applies to both given the design operating parameters. Now, when would you want to use either of the machines? It's a question that we need to think about. So I suggest that you should use air curtain burner when only disposing biomass. If you're only interested in just burning your biomass within your backyard or maybe contaminated wood waste, then you should consider using an air curtain burner. So you can as well use air curtain burner in a forest setting with a large quantity of biomass that are concentrated within a given unit, so that you don't have to move this machine from one place that is costly, given additional equipment that you would need and manpower. So this actually calls for a concentrated operation. So concentrated operation basically means that you do not need any additional equipment once the machine is actually set up at a particular unit. Like the site where we did our demo here at the Coconino County, they have the air curtain burners set up at a particular wax yard. So they have to hold all the material at that place and burn it off from there. And then this machine will also be actually useful when you're disposing contaminated feedstock, e.g. urban wood wastes. Now, when would we use a charbos? Of course, when you want to produce biochar, you're probably in business. And then you can use this also in a setting with multiple small piles scattered within the forest. Reason here means you can just connect it, drive it around, burn whatever the pile you have, move it to the next pile, burn it like that. And that would be the most appropriate use for it. And again, you can as well only use it in an setting where you are not running a heavy equipment to be able to get biomass burned. But remember that you need to get a burning permit. And this is, I think, is state dependent, because in Utah, I think they have a different arrangement. Most states consider this, and I stand here to be corrected by the air burners company or people from the county who've been using it. Some of them consider it as an incinerator, while I think in Utah, they look at it as a biomass disposal machine. So it is dependent on what activity you want to do, but you need a permit to be able to operate on those ones. So in my conclusion, technically, the burning rates are different between the two machines, and you can see that what we got from our experiment, given the variables that we had and the conditions under which we operated, you can take home message that our experiment determined 2.5 green tons an hour, and was of 0.8 green tons an hour. These two values are for mixed diameter class biomass. Now, the biochar recovery here was determined based on bone dry ton. The bone dry ton simply means that we are considering wood without moisture, 0% moisture dropped into the firebox and then burnt, and then we look at the output and get that as a ratio of the in-feed fuel quantity. So that is the percentage that we got at 17.2%. I know there could be variability out there. For example, the Forest Service people, I think maybe they report it based on green tons of biomass burned. And as I've mentioned earlier, the variability of advantages and disadvantages of these machines are dependent on their functional designs. And that is what I determined. And we strongly consider that a future study should be conducted independently by assigning an operator for each of these two machines to be able to verify if these values can hold and whether they can change. Now, with that, I would like to acknowledge the following partners that collaborated during this study, and that was the Ecological Restoration Institute of Northern Arizona University, the Coconino County Flood Control District, the University of Arizona, the USDA Forest Service, and actually the funding for the demonstration came from the USDA Forest Service. I'm the air burners company for actually sending the technical team to come and be with us on site as we were conducting this experiment. Special thanks goes to Victor Ohuminiki and Jay Smith. These folks were the ones who allowed us to use their equipment and gave us the yard where all this experiment was conducted. Of course, we had Chris Jones, who was really very active in organizing this public demo event. Rocky Mountain Research Station, I'm not sure if I'm wrong, correct here with Rocky. The Biochar crew that came all the way from Idaho and Montana, Nate, Debbie, Joanne, Daniel, and Derek. We appreciate the good work that you did for us. And then we have back Poise and Matt Dennis, who were with us for the whole week to ensure that we were running the machines according to what they would expect us to do. And then the AmeriCorps. The AmeriCorps here, they did a very fantastic job in actually sorting the biomass piles into different diameter classes. And we do appreciate all these partners and thank you all. So this far, I think I've come to the end of the presentation and I would welcome questions. And over to you, Anne.
Thank you so much, Paul. That was a fantastic presentation. And if you have a question, you can either throw it into the chat or you can raise your hand or just speak out and we'll get it going. We have about, and I know, Paul, you have a class and we have about 7 minutes and then we're going to switch over to another subject. So not a ton of time for questions. We've got Chris Jones, I see. Chris, you want to?
Oh, no, I was just saying kudos, good presentation. This is really good. You know, we're trying to figure out where is that break-even point of the biochar value. And so having this type of research between the difference of using the ACB to burn it to ash or using the biochar, the burn, the Char boss to make biochar just helps us to figure out there's a fixed cost. There's something we need to be sure we account for. So excellent work and appreciate the opportunity to be part of this with you guys. So thank you, Han and Paul and the team.
Thank you, Chris.
Other questions or comments? There's a chat. Let's look at that. This is from Mariella. I thought Char Boss was a type of air curtain burner, but according to this presentation, I understand that the Char Boss is not an air curtain burner, correct?
Hi, Brian O'Connor at Air Burners. Got a couple comments.
You bet.
So, thanks. First of all, we make 15 different models of air curtain burners. Air curtain burners is a generic term. So the ones that you had in Arizona, which Paul's calling a air curtain burner, is actually one of our models called a 119, and it's a roll-off model. So first of all, in terms of transportation, that unit is the easiest unit in the world to move because all you do is back up a roll-off truck to it, hook it up, and drive away. And that's the reason it was designed that way. Some of our other machines that are really big, as Paul pointed out, can be a little more challenging to put on a low boy or something in that regard. The other point, we spoke with Paul a couple days ago, and one of the difficulties was that the team out there was not pushing for throughput. So throughput is an important component of the cost per hour. The machine you have out there, again, that Paul's calling an air curtain burner, which is really our model S119, that unit will do at least 4 tons an hour of particulate, now, or of throughput of biomass. And there was periods of time where the machine sat unattended for at least an hour, and all of that was factored into this. So I think, one of the things I think Paul mentioned is probably worth doing this again. We've tested these numerous times with some of the folks that are on this call right now. And, these numbers are are developed from being out in the field. So I think it's important to note that when you're looking at the cost per hour, the throughput right now was not pushed to its limit. So it is on the low side. These are two different machines. As again, many of you that are on this call know, we developed the Char Boss under a creative partnership with the U.S. Forest Service. And this machine was developed off of one of our smaller machines, particularly to make biochar. So it's not really a machine that's designed and maximized to eliminate biomass. Our other fireboxes, like the 119, like the bigger machine you had there, they're meant to eliminate biomass as fast as possible. It does burn it down to ash, although there usually is some biochar left in it, but it's something that comes at the end of the day. So I wanted to make sure those 2 points were clear.
I'll make a quick comment also, Brian, just on it regarding the question that's in the chat box. The Char Boss does have an air curtain over the top of it. It has a blower and it has that same technology that is associated with those other the other air curtain burners in your lineup. Is there anything different about that on the Char Boss, Brian, than the other was, or is it pretty much the same type of air curtain with the same emissions quality effects as the other models in your lineup?
Yeah, thanks for making the point. Yeah, it's all technical. All of our machines use exactly the same air curtain technology to trap the particulates as Paul was describing. Basically, the air curtain creates a secondary burn chamber. We burn up the particulate inside the firebox, and it comes out more like hot gas, as Paul was saying. But they're all identical, all of our machines. Is there any confusion on that?
I have a follow-up question to that, and I want to get to questions for Paul too, but I'm not quite following throughput. And when Paul presented, I thought that he was saying that they were only factoring in the completed loads into the timing. So I'm not sure that those rates that he came up with even factored in times when the machines were sitting. It sounded like that was only calculating the time for completed loads. So clarification on Paul's research and also that on throughput.
Well, thank you, Becca. I would clarify that the cycles that I talked about, the complete cycles, were only meant to determine the productivity of the loaders and not the burning machines. So the amount of load that went in, we had a pile that had a known weight, and all of that was thrown into the machine. But there are some cycles where we did not have complete elements gone through, like the machine going and dropping that material somewhere, and then it is handled differently, or it comes later to pick it up again. So those are the elements that we were not factoring in the time study. Time study here only considered complete cycle times. But one thing I would want to clarify is that the biomass material that was thrown in was of known weight, and all we were interested in is knowing how long it's going to take to burn it.
Okay.
Does that make some?
So then the throughput is that piece of it is that it wasn't necessarily maximized how much of that biomass could be put in the box within that time frame.
Yeah, a lot of it was dependent on how consistently the operator was loading, because we did not assign an operator to be by the side of the machine, and we did not actually have a loading pile sitting by the side of the machine such that he was just constantly loading. That was not the case. So that's when Brian is talking, that is one of the areas that we think contributed to the low throughput because of that consistency in loading. Otherwise, if we would have assigned one operator fully and monitored all that Brian is asking, then I think we would probably push closer to the minimum value that they think the machine should be operating at.
Yeah, but if I can comment further, Paul, that's important because this is the economics of the machine. So if you look on our website, you'll see throughput. All of those have been tested by independent organizations. So those throughputs are generally fairly minimal. I mean, you can usually get more. So this one here, yeah, it's a little on the low side.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Well, Paul, thanks so much for your presentation. And I can feel the group out. And if we want to continue this during another COP meeting, we can do that. So I really appreciate you sharing with us and spending the time with us.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for attending. If there is any follow-up question for me and comments, I would love to get comments on what you think I did poorly on, that I should consider improving on. I would appreciate.
All right. Thank you.
Otherwise, thank you so much, everyone.
Good.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Paul.
Nice work.
Thank you.
And if you want, you can stop sharing your screen, Paul. That would be great.
Okay, thanks.
So just moving on in our agenda, I wanted to mention that we had previously sent out a link to a very short survey to do a needs assessment on this wood utilization community of practice. We'll drop that into Podio again, and maybe Becca, if you can quickly drop it into the chat. I should have cued you for that. That would be awesome. And we really want to see how we can improve this space, what you're interested in hearing about, and even the broader goals and objectives of this group. So we would really appreciate if you would complete that survey. And now I'm going to hand it over to Bergen. And Bergen is going to give us an introduction to the Four Corners Sustainable Forest Partnership. And then we're going to continue this conversation in November. And just as a note, the November call is switched to November 9th from 11 to 12 Mountain. And in Arizona, that would be the same time because of the time change. It will be at 11 o'clock instead of 10. And that's due to Thanksgiving. So mark that on your calendars, Thursday, November 9th. And we're going to continue this conversation then. But Bergen, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Sounds good. Good morning, everyone. Just one thing I wanted to run by the team here was just about this idea we had for building a Four Corners wood utilization team. So this came as a result of us as the state of Utah wanting to apply for a wood innovations grant to build a statewide wood utilization team. But we know that there had been efforts in previous years to expand that into the Four Corners. So we just wanted to see what that opportunity could hold for the region. So with that, we had a meeting just back in August to introduce the idea to participants from the Four Corners area. Essentially, met with Northern Arizona University and my counterparts in each of the Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, each of the other states there. And so what that might look like, goals and priorities we have for that regional team would include workforce development and training. So just training people in forest equipment operations, specialized maintenance, and log trucking. And I know that there's already a lot of work being done by Northern Arizona University. So we want to just build off that work and leverage those opportunities. Another priority would be marketing and technical assistance. So that could include like business planning, marketing brochures, efficiency studies, equipment experimentation, all sorts of those things. Another priority would be like a revolving loan fund. That was something that was identified in the original partnership. That could include gap financing for forest product businesses. Right now, Colorado has a forest business loan fund that they have in place that could be a good model to build, and other states too. Another key component is education and networking. So that would include seminars, conferences, and workshops, maybe around biochar or other topics that the group is interested in, and then communications and public information as well. Just educating the public about the importance of forestry work and the work that we're all involved in. And then finally, another priority is working on firewood banks. There's a lot of work going on right now with like Arizona and Colorado providing firewood supply to like the Navajo and Hopi nations. So in the state of Utah, we're starting to get involved in those efforts as well. And so that could be another like Four Corners regional priority to work on supplying that wood to different tribes in each of our states. And yeah, I think those are the key goals and priorities for now, and we can have a greater discussion in November. But I just wanted to bring that idea to the group and see. I think could help tie into this group we're in now, and I'm also a part of like the Council of Western State Foresters, so could leverage both of those groups and tie each of our work into this initiative as well. But just I wanted to run with that by you all.
That's great. Thanks so much. I look forward to that. I try to write all those main goals down, and it's definitely a lot, but it's I think a lot of them are goals that a lot of us have been working on, like the workforce. You can point to Dr. Hahn on that. And then, yeah, we have the Wood for Life program here in Arizona, and I know Colorado's really strong. We had a presentation on the Wood for Life program there. So this sounds really exciting, and we can talk about how you would like to organize that call in November to get the most, bang for the buck on really getting this information out and figuring out how folks can be involved.
Yeah, that'd be great, and we can even on that call narrow down, because these are just a lot of different ideas we looked at and saw from previous partnerships, and so we can narrow our focus even if we would like to. And yeah,
Comments or questions, ideas for the next meeting, because we're going to explore this in depth, I think, during the next meeting in November.
I would just like us to think about how we might make some of that discussion applicable in terms of some of the priorities beyond the Four Corners, or if it's not, just make sure we're clear about that in the invitation, that this is really a specific discussion for Four Corners area folks, or if we break out around that. So just thinking about some of that, because I know some of that work is going to be, the goals are going to be relevant at a broader scale, but some of the specifics of how to are really those partner states figuring it out. I'm excited.
Awesome.
Okay. Again, our next meeting is on Thursday, November 9th from 11 to noon, Arizona. It will be an hour later, so please be there at 11 instead of 10 like today, because of the time change that will occur in early November. And I also wanted to mention Podio that we use for our platform will phase out in December, and we are going to switch to a new platform, so we'll keep you all posted on that. We'll be on this through the end of the year, and then we'll keep you posted on the new platform that the Fire Adapted Communities is going to implement. So we'll keep you posted on that. I appreciate everybody being here today, and we look forward to seeing you on November 9th for our next call. Thanks, everyone. Good to see you.